Hello and welcome to this week's Weekly Wind-Up with me, Helen Ashcroft. Coming up on today's show, we will be discussing the Real Junk Food project and also the subject of gestational diabetes. Now, as normal, we have two guests that will be discussing the topics for this show. The first guest is going to be Doreen Reid and my second guest is Sharon Munt. Now, before we actually have a chat with Doreen, let's find out what the people of Huddersfield have to say about the Real Junk Food project.
I don't know anything, I know very little. I assume it's about healthy eating and with maybe more towards the youth and the younger generation.
I really don't know anything about it because I've never came across it or heard it, and I would like to know about it, but if it's not been out, I can't help.
Can't say I've come across it. I mean, I know junk food is generally kind of like bad and unhealthy, like takeaways, chocolate, that kind of stuff, but I'm not sure about the project or anything.
Don't know anything about it. I mean, I know junk food's an issue, but I'm not aware of any initiatives against it.
I don't know anything about the project. I don't eat much junk food myself, but I know that it's a big problem. I work in a school and kids just love junk food. And it would be nice if there was a project for that.
Right, my first guest today is Doreen Reid, who is setting up this amazing project in Huddersfield. Now, rather than me tell you about it, I think it should sound better coming from the person who took up this challenge. So Doreen, tell me more. Hello.
Hello. As you rightly said, it's an amazing project. Basically, the Real Junk Food project, Huddersfield, is part of a network of pay-as-you-feel cafes.
Right.
Basically, what we're going to do with our amazing volunteers, we're going to actually intercept food that would ordinarily be thrown away as waste. And what we're going to do with that food, we're going to actually collect it.
Yeah.
We're going to bring it back to our WOW community cafe, and where our amazing volunteer chefs are going to be creating nutritional, tasty meals. And people can come in, sit down, eat what they want, and then leave and give a donation at the counter. That's how it's going to work. It's amazing, isn't it?
That sounds really fascinating. Now, I've got loads of questions.
Go ahead.
So my first question is, what made you think of this project?
Right, the funny thing is, I myself, the actual project itself came through from a place of adversity. I had actually come out of a really difficult, dark situation, and I was on a healing path. And that path came into being as volunteering myself in a soup kitchen in another city.
Right.
And also I actually am paid as a contractor for London Air Ambulance. So those two elements in my life gave me back a sense of direction. And working with those as a volunteer in the soup kitchen over in Bradford, what that did for me, and still does, is make me realise that people still care. And I'd actually lost faith in people and humanity as a whole, because I'm a little bit of an activist. So what the Real Junk Food project started from was basically an idea of a soup kitchen.
Right.
Now, working in a soup kitchen, that's all I knew about. I didn't understand how to actually put one together. So coming from a corporate career to working in a volunteering in a soup kitchen, I decided to use all the skill sets that I had for 25 years in business, in new business and business development on a corporate level, and I used that for hunting and finding out what the real what soup kitchens were all about. That's when I stumbled across Adam Smith and his profile about the Real Junk Food project in Leeds. Now, this young man had actually formed a concept where he'd come back from Australia and decided to realise that this food waste that was happening in Australia was also happening in Leeds, his hometown. And he set about intercepting this food and basically feeding people on the street initially.
So how does he intercept food? How do you intercept food?
Yeah, how it actually works is, basically we're re-educating, that's the second element of the actual Real Junk Food project. We're going to re-educate food retailers. We don't want food waste and poverty to coexist in the Huddersfield community. So what I'm going to do, when I actually speak to supermarkets and grocery people and we're talking about restaurants, the catering industry, anybody that's got anything to do with the food industry know more about waste than I do. What we want to do, I want to actually let them know that we are here. We can use us as a service to intercept your food waste. Instead of throwing it in the bins, let's feed bellies and not bins. So we'll happily go down to wherever in Huddersfield. It could be a restaurant, it could be a supermarket, and we'll pick up that food, collect it free of charge. So we want you to use us in the community as a free food waste management company, basically. We'll do that for you.
So the food that they're wanting to, well, get rid of, basically, what type of food is it? Are we talking about tins of things? Are we talking about fresh vegetables? What are we talking about?
Well, basically, food waste is phenomenal. There's over 400,000 tonnes wasted just by supermarkets every year.
Wow.
So what we say is basically anything that you don't want in your shelves, that you're not using, let us be the judge of it, and let's see if it's still fit for human consumption, and let's take it away, because there are people in our community that are vulnerable, that are isolated, that have mental health issues, that are struggling with the cost of living. And so this community cafe is for everybody. So basically, we want retail companies and organisations who work with food and throw away food to basically contact us and be part of the project. So instead of putting it in the bin, ring us and also have a sense of ownership.
Yes.
You'll feel that you're actually giving back to something greater than yourself, and that's what we want to actually re-educate everybody about.
So from a business point of view, obviously it's food that's not useful in their environment.
Yeah, untouched.
But what benefit do they get from it? Do you advertise the fact that, say it was a local restaurant, you know, donations from such and such? Is that something that you would be able to do for that company?
At this stage, what we're actually doing, it's only 4 weeks going, this actual project, so it's brand new. Now, what we're looking at is elements of linking up with companies, obviously. It's, to me, it goes hand in hand, because at the end of the day, it's all about everybody linking with each other. Now, of course, what I will say to these actual organisations is, if you're helping us, we're getting rid of food waste together. We're actually getting rid of food waste, and we're also helping the people who are less fortunate, who will just like to pay with a donation. We're also going to try and help people that are also on zero contracts. They're on benefits, and they're on low incomes, and they're on what they call living wage. Those kind of people aren't going to actually say to their neighbour, look, I've got no food at the moment, my wage isn't coming in till next week, I'm not going to literally live on anything. Those people are just going to put up and shut up. There's people living like that, hand over fist, every single day. I want them to be able to come into the actual cafe environment, the community cafe environment, and basically release that stigma. And that's what the pay-as-you-feel donation jar will be about. You put in what you think you can afford, or if you haven't got anything, nobody's going to know what you put in there. But at the end of the day, you've contributed, and you've not made to feel that you're stigmatised. And in this day and age, we feel that service is going to be beneficial to a lot of people.
So when you're saying a lot of people, that's not just individuals, that's families as well, isn't it?
Yes, that's included families with children. What we initially wanted to do was, I come from a background where I know very little about mental health issues. Now, fortunately for me, I'm not shy from knocking on doors. So in my hometown, I've lived here all my life, over 40 years, I've managed to find to date 4 small fringe organisations that are committed to helping people with mental issues, mental health and well-being and emotional issues. And I'm exploring a new initiative with Support to Recovery. That's an organisation based in the town centre, and they're exploring an initiative that's going to be a bolt-on initiative to the actual existing cafe drive. It'll be an evening issue that's going to look at creativity, and it'll be an extra addition to the cafe and what it's already doing. So we're looking at where we can bolt on initiatives to benefit the wider audience.
So basically, it's not just about feeding a family or feeding an individual, is it?
It's actually targeting food waste. We don't believe that food waste and poverty should coexist in the same environment. We know that we've all got a little bit of an activist inside of us.
Yes.
We all look at issues in the world and think, I wish things were better. I think what I believe in is that we're becoming more vocal now as a society, which is really good, and you can see that on social media. We're not being shy away from things that are issues, but the next step, I believe, is taking action. Small actions by lots of people make a big difference, and that's what we're aiming for with the Real Junk Food Project in Huddersfield. We want to be able to make that big change, but starting from ground level.
So where's your cafe?
Right, well, at this moment in time, the cafe is non-existent.
Oh, right, okay.
It's non-existent. What it actually is, we've actually got together with the Basement Project.
Brilliant.
They're based in Dewsbury, but they've actually landed a facility in Huddersfield.
Yeah.
And they're going to be based at the Union Bank. They support young people and adults back into, from substance abuse, back into the community through programmes. We are at initial discussions talking about joint ventures working together, and it's their kitchen, their building. They can do exactly what they would like, and if they invite us in, we'd be more than happy to work with them, and that's how we're going to collaborate at this moment in time, which is a fantastic idea.
It is.
It's going to be Huddersfield's first dry pub.
Ah, now I did see that advertised. Wow,
Because
right.
their users in Huddersfield are currently going all the way to Dewsbury for this facility.
Yes.
Now they've brought it to Huddersfield, and they're going to add food on top of that. It's going to be a fantastic
How
relationship.
fabulous. Now I know when people watch this, obviously they're going to be interested in the project itself, but I'm hoping and I believe that there'll be some people that think, I want to be involved in that. How do people get involved? How do they get in touch with you? You know, what happens now?
Right, well, it's really good because there is a big buzz about us at the moment. I have been making a lot of contacts in the community, in the townships where we live in, and basically how people can get in touch with me. We're on Facebook, The Real Junk Food Project,
Yeah.
Huddersfield. We're on Facebook. You can send me a message. You can contact me on 07963 409 633, and that's direct straight through to me.
Right.
And you can email us at trjphuddersfield at yahoo.co.com. Sorry.
Brilliant. Thank you ever so much. I think it's a really worthwhile project. Very, very interesting.
Yes.
It's something that I'd not heard of before, but I do hope and I think that it really will move forward.
Thank you. It's revolutionary.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, thank you ever so much, and hopefully we'll get you back when you've had a launch or when you've moved forward a little further, and then we can find out a little bit more and see if there's anything else that people can get involved with.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for having me today on your actual show.
No worries at all. It'd be nice to chat with you.
Thank you.
So now it's time for some local news from our area. So in the Huddersfield Examiner on the 1st of August, it's about the poppies from the Tower of London. Well, the poppies, named Blood, Sweat, Land and Seas of Red, was displayed in the Tower of London earlier this year. Now, fortunately, they are actually being moved, or 10,000 of them are being moved up to the Yorkshire Sculpture Park. Now, it's called Wave, and it's actually going to be down at the South Lake. So for anybody that's a bit unsure, there is a bus that will actually ferry people from the sculpture park down to the actual sculpture itself. And I have to say, having been to London and seen the sculpture myself, it is absolutely amazing. Okay, so how many poppies are there going to be? Well, there were 888,246 poppies originally, but it's 10,000 that have actually been put in this exhibition. So if you do get a chance, the sculpture was created by the artist Paul Cummins and was installed by Tom Piper, and it really, really is worth a visit if you get the opportunity. Anyway, join us after the break when we're going to be talking about gestational diabetes with Sharon.
However large or small your business, attracting new customers requires dedication and a lot of patience. Just like fishing, but you also need the right gear. Rods,
reels, lines, hooks, sinkers, lures,
tackle box, tackle bag, net, bait, gas gloves, clothes, pocket knife, roach.
Or you could simply advertise with KLTV. online, grow your business and your clientele. KLTV, your vision made reality. Should have gone to KLTV.
Hello and welcome back to the Weekly Wind-Up with me, Helen Ashcroft. Now remember, the Weekly Wind-Up can be contacted by email at info@kirkleeslocaltv.com or on Twitter @The Weekly Wind-Up and also on Facebook. Now for some more local news. And this was in the Huddersfield Examiner on the 17th of August, where a Huddersfield mum passes up the husband's kidney donation in case her son, who's 9, needs it. Now this story is about a Huddersfield mum and has the agony of her own kidney disease put to one side in order to save her son. Amanda Littlewood, who's 38 and from Longwood, has suffered with polycystic kidney disease all her adult life. With her kidneys failing, forcing her to spend 3 days a week in hospital, her husband, John Paul, stepped forward and said he would donate one of his kidneys. But the life-saving procedure has had to be put on hold after the family got the devastating news that their 8-year-old son, Zach, may need the surgery. I got diagnosed when I was 18, said Amanda, but my mum, my brother and my grandma already had it. Amanda said she'd been surprised at how few donors there are in Britain. And it's interesting, but Calderdale and Huddersfield NHS Foundation Trust has revealed it secured just 10 donors in 2014-15. I was really shocked, said Amanda. I thought there would be a lot more than that, especially now there's a lot more information about it. Now this subject is a very emotive subject, and I do know that we will be covering organ donation on a later episode. So now for our second guest, and this is Sharon Munt from Relative Accountants. Hello Sharon.
Hi.
Now the reason we've asked Sharon here, it's just been in the news recently about diabetes and the fact that in the last 10 years diabetes has increased by 60%. Now I know we're not talking about the standard diabetes, but you actually had a form of diabetes, didn't you?
Yes, I had gestational diabetes when I was pregnant with my 9-month-old Mina, which obviously is the same thing, and the condition has to be treated in a similar manner.
So, I mean, you hear about diabetes, and as I say, it's on the news, and you think, you know, oh well, people drink a lot, they want a lot of, fluids, or they go to the toilet a lot. Did you have those symptoms?
Well, I was pregnant, so you kind of don't know what your body's doing anyway. But no, it was part of a routine check at the midwives.
Right.
And because I was an older mum, and my BMI was, I think it's above 30 at the time, and my mum also has diabetes, so I ticked a lot of boxes that I'd be higher risk. So it's something that they check during your antenatal care. So I was sent to have a glucose tolerance test at 24 weeks.
Where did you go for the test then? The GP?
No, to the hospital. You have to go up there at 7 o'clock after fasting for the night, and you just get a very sugary drink, glucose, and then wait for an hour and then have a blood test to see how your body's dealing with the increased sugar within the system, because the pregnancy hormones can mean that your body can't control your blood sugars in the normal way.
Now, is that a problem if you're pregnant? You know, does it cause complications?
It does. It's very serious. It's taken very seriously by the profession as well, because there's complications for mum, but more importantly for baby. It can actually lead to miscarriage or stillbirth in really extreme circumstances. So
oh my goodness.
It's a really, really worrying time if you're diagnosed with it.
So coming back to when you actually had the test, you had the test and obviously you found out. Did you find out there and then?
No, they actually rang me later that day. So they were very quick
Right.
to actually get you back in there and to prep you about what this actually means. Because gestational diabetes typically just lasts whilst you're pregnant, you have to get it under control very, very, very quickly.
Right.
You don't have the time that you may have if you had diabetes in order to try and find the foods to manage.
So what did you have to do? Did you have to take medication? What process did you have to do?
I have to say I had a few struggles.
Right.
Because you attend the initial appointment and they give you your devices so you can take your bloods yourself and test your sugars.
And how often do you do that?
It was 3 times a day. And you had to take it an hour after you'd eaten to make sure that your body was dealing correctly with the sugar.
Right.
And different foods react differently with different people.
Yeah.
And I found that in particular for me, it was things like bread and cereals. It wasn't necessarily a chocolate bar that tipped me over. But yeah, very, very quickly, you keep a diary. Next week, you go back to the clinic and they assess what your blood sugars are doing and whether you need to go on medication. And they did try to put me on medication after a week, but I thought that was too soon.
Yeah.
Because I think you need to be able to experiment a little bit with your diet. So eventually I managed to keep that under control, and by basically eating a very low GI diet, it could manage it that way. But not everyone's so lucky, and you can't control it with diet, even if you're really, really good, because the pregnancy hormones are just sending your body into chaos.
You said GI. What's the GI diet?
It's about the way your body releases the sugars. If it's got a low GI, it means it releases it slowly. So like porridge, oats, typically would keep you fuller for longer than a sugary cereal. But oats didn't work very well with me. It just sent mine rocketing.
Wow.
So you really had to kind of see what worked for you, and followed a really strict diet. It was very hard because you couldn't give in to your pregnancy cravings.
Oh, wow. So how often did you have to go back and be checked?
Every other week. I was lucky to go every other week, but I know that some ladies had to go every week because they weren't managing to control it with their diet, and they have to go onto meds or insulin injections.
Now, you talked about the possible risk of a miscarriage. So although they're caring for you and your sugar levels, what about the baby? Did they actually scan you more often? Or?
Yes, I have to say you are really well looked after. The baby's really well looked after. Everything is done for baby's sake, because the risks to baby are that they may get too large, and therefore it's complications in birth. Also after birth they may have complications with their blood sugars. I know that Mina had to stay in hospital for longer just to make sure that her body was dealing with the blood sugar before we could go home.
So did she go to full term, or did you go to full term?
We were 2 weeks early, but it's quite typical that you have a premature labour. So I was ready at 38 weeks anyway. And she was a good weight. She was 8'5", and everything was okay. But
I think that is good for a little girl. I mean, I had 2 boys myself. What about you, Doreen? Did you?
Girl.
And what weight was she?
7'4".
Yeah, so slightly bigger.
Yeah.
But everything's okay.
Everything's okay. Yeah, the care that's given is excellent, and you do get to see baby a lot more often because of the scan. But it just adds another level of complications and stress and emotional distress as well, knowing that everything you put in your mouth could actually be harming your baby.
Yes, of course.
And I think it is on the rise, is gestational diabetes.
That was something I was going to ask you. You do think it is on the rise?
It is. The clinics were very busy, and I think that they're testing for it more frequently. And I think a lot of symptoms that were historically put down to morning sickness are actually gestational diabetes.
Really?
Yeah, because when I changed my diet, It went. And I know with my first child, Isaac, I
Yeah.
wasn't diagnosed with it because I wasn't tested. And I was ill. I felt ill for a lot of the pregnancy, but all the morning sickness, it all left as soon as I changed my diet. So,
I mean, it's interesting what you're saying about the fact that you said if you have a higher BMI level and an age. I mean, when I was pregnant, I don't know about you, Doreen, we've got children about the similar age, haven't we?
Yes, I think so, definitely.
I mean, we just went to the midwives and we had to just, you know, produce a sample, and then they put a little dipstick in, didn't they?
They didn't go through any rigmarole.
No, there wasn't.
It's quite straightforward, but it's good that they've actually developed it now.
I think it's far better.
I think that it was because I'm an older mum. But I think that that's just what's happening in this day and age now.
Yes.
Women are making more choices as to when they have their children
Yes,
as well.
of course.
So there are a lot of older mums out there now, so it's getting picked up.
Classed as older mums, but we're not really older mums at all, are we?
Experienced, I'd
Yes,
say.
that's it.
That's right.
Mature and experienced mums, that's the way to look at it.
Yeah.
So is there a risk that you've had gestational diabetes? Is there a risk that you could actually develop the normal diabetes, the standard diabetes, if you like?
Yes,
there is.
You are classed as high risk now.
Right.
I was looking if it did go away after the birth and everything's okay there. But you are considered to be high risk for the future. So actually keeping in mind your revised diet and exercise that you had to put in place when you were pregnant, it's a really good thing to carry that forward, and that will help to combat diabetes anyway, because I think a lot of it is diet related.
Yes, I think that's the big thing, isn't it? The diet and the exercise.
Yeah.
And I think the lifestyles that we lead now, we tend to get in the car and drive somewhere rather than actually walk.
I walk a lot. I don't
Do you?
drive. Yes.
You see, I must admit, with my job, I seem to go from office to car.
Lifestyle though, isn't it?
Yes,
as well?
it is.
Cramming everything in.
Yeah, maybe I need to start walking the dog more and perhaps stop eating the chocolates and the crisps. Yes, it is all about balance. It is. Now, there may be some people that are watching this who are actually in the early stages of pregnancy or thinking about getting pregnant, and watching this, it sort of made them think, oh my goodness, that could happen to me. Is there help?
There is help. Like I said, it's part of a routine check now, and if you have a family history, then I think that they actually diagnose it earlier than 24 weeks. So if you are diagnosed with it, then there is help available there. There's a lot of information out on the internet as well.
Yeah.
A lot of it conflicting. So you have to put some trust in the healthcare professionals and also how you feel as a mum as well.
So you put your trust in the midwife and also the GP. If there was anything that you were unsure of, straight to them.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think that you have to as the first port of call, and then you have to aim yourself with as much information as possible about the diet and things like that. So
wow, I think it's a really interesting subject, and I think because diabetes is in the news at the moment, I think it's important that we look at different aspects. The gestational one obviously is something that you've said is possibly on the increase. We need to be aware of it.
Yeah.
So thank you ever so much.
Thanks for having
Everything's
me.
all right with Mina and yourself?
yes,
you
she's
said?
perfect.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
How old is she now?
She's 9 months now.
Oh wow, brilliant. Oh well, thank you ever so much. Thank you for talking to us
Thank
about
you.
that. So finally, time for the last story from Kirklees. And always on my shows, it's a feel-good story. Now I believe the other week you were told about the missing sheep, Rambo, and also mint sauce, and it's a bit of a bad feeling when this happens, sorry for the pun. Now Rambo turned up, mint sauce didn't. But after an appeal in the Huddersfield Examiner, thankfully, mint sauce did turn up. Now, mint sauce is actually part of a cohort of sheep that raise funds for the Laura Crane Trust. And there are a number of sheep involved in this, all with different names, mint sauce and Rambo being two of them. Thankfully, with the plea in the Examiner, a lady who had actually seen this realised that this sheep had been found, and so contacted the Examiner and said that mint sauce was in this specific place, and thankfully mint sauce has now rejoined Rambo, Barbara, Lamb Chop, Sean and Dolly. So all's good, all ends well, brilliant end to the week. So that's it from this week's Weekly Wind-Up. And I do want to thank my guests who've joined us this week, Doreen and Sharon. Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed talking to you. Please remember the Weekly Wind-Up can be contacted by email at info@kirkleeslocaltv.com or on Twitter @The Weekly Wind-Up, and we also have the Facebook page. Please don't forget that. Thank you ever so much for joining us. Goodbye.